Hi everyone, my name is Rohit Agarwalla. I'm a technical leader in the OpenStack at Cisco team. I've been involved with OpenStack almost since its inception. I've played several roles along these years. I started as an OpenStack core community developer and architect, and now also an evangelist. So today we're going to talk about upcoming services in OpenStack. Before I dive into all of the exciting services that are incubated in the community, let me also give you a quick overview of what OpenStack is. So OpenStack is a cloud computing platform for building your private as well as your public clouds. So it enables these services to be deployed on your standard hardware and uses a set of OpenStack shared services to intercommunicate amongst themselves. So each of these services actually have certain design tenets inbuilt in them. So for example, they need to be multi-tenant. OpenStack supports, as one of the pillars actually for building this open source project, is that it has to support multi-tenancy. Then each of these services are scalable and elastic, and they have a shared nothing and distribute everything architecture. In addition to that, all services need to expose REST APIs. So these are the APIs that your tenants, your administrators, or even your applications will basically perform, create, read, update, delete your CRUD operations against these REST API endpoints. Now here in the picture, you can see I have three services that are shown: a compute, networking, and storage, which are kind of the three legs of the data center. But the number of services in OpenStack have expanded tremendously over the past few releases. So let me also go through the progress that the community has gone through over the past releases. So initially the project started with just two projects, compute and storage. As you can see in the Austin release that was back in October 2010, we had NASA contribute the compute code, which was codenamed as Nova, and Rackspace contribute the storage code for the object storage service, codenamed as Swift. And from then on, the community has just continued to build momentum and involve more and more contributors as well as new features. So if we compare, for example, on two matrix as in the number of contributors and the number of features, in the Behe release, which was in February 2011, we had 130 contributors with only 30 new features. Well, it was good for a new project that was just starting. If we compare that to the Kilo release, so here you can see all of the OpenStack releases are codenamed alphabetically, and I have stacked them in an alphabetical order. So the last release was codenamed as Kilo. We see about close to 1,500 contributors with close to 400 new features. That's amazing for that's amazing for an open source project. If you go and read some of the blog posts out there that compare OpenStack with some of the other open source implementations or other open source projects, you will see OpenStack as being on the top of the list. So carrying on here from a contributors and a new features perspective, we actually came out from the latest Liberty Design Summit. So Liberty is the code name for the next OpenStack release. And we had about close to 5,000 people who gathered together to actually understand what are the new features that should be part of this release. So I expect the community to continue the momentum of providing new features as well as getting new contributors getting involved into OpenStack. By the way, we are going to have this as the 12th release, 12th OpenStack release. And just as a summary for this slide, every contributor within the community needs to be part of the OpenStack Foundation. And today we have close to 24,000 people who have signed up. And the number of companies that are actually helping build OpenStack in some way or the other and supporting OpenStack is close to 500. So it's a lot of people that are involved. It's an open source project, but it's still vendor backed because the framework allows you to actually integrate with the infrastructure for building your different OpenStack services. So talking about the upcoming services in OpenStack, so initially, like I said, it started with just two projects, compute and storage, right, for object storage. Here you can see in the slide, I have close to about 20 projects that have been officially recognized by the technical committee or the OpenStack Foundation. So both the technical committee and the OpenStack Foundation are responsible for making sure that the OpenStack as a project is heading in the right direction, it's bringing in the right projects into the community, The projects themselves have a lot of contributors, and they are basically building the core of the project in the right way. So things like ensuring that REST APIs get exposed, and they have third-party integrations to ensure that all the tests pass. So that's the role of the technical committee, to ensure the new services that become part of the OpenStack Big Tent pass these requirements. So in the slide here, you can see I have 20 projects, and I have categorized them according to 3 different colors. On the left, the projects in green are the infrastructure-based services. So within the compute domain itself, we started with virtual machine provisioning as a Nova project, but we have innovated and included other compute projects itself. So one of the highlights in the Kilo release was the Ironic project, which is for bare metal server provisioning. So your tenants can basically use the REST APIs to now request bare metal servers on which they can run their application workload. In addition to bare metal servers, we also have containers and resources that are provided to tenants that they can actually orchestrate provisioning containers within the infrastructure that is provisioned by OpenStack. So the name of that project is called Magnum. From a storage point of view, like I said, Swift was the object storage service. We have now also expanded to include Cinder, which is for providing block storage, as well as Manila, which is for providing network file system storage capabilities. From a networking point of view, the OpenStack project had a Nova network module, which was part of the Nova service itself in the beginning. We now have a standalone service called Neutron, and we have a plugin architecture that actually enables you to program your infrastructure using the network APIs. So there are a lot of Cisco infrastructure integrations that are already present with, for example, the Neutron service, with Cinder, as well as with Ironic. Now the projects here in blue are the services that actually support these infrastructure-based projects. So we have Keystone, which is an identification and an authorization and authentication service, which is very important for a multi-tenant cloud. So all of the infrastructure-based services actually use Keystone to ensure that the tenants have the right tokens when they are requesting or hitting the REST API endpoints. Finally, the projects in orange are the higher level services that actually use the infrastructure level services to provide some of the functionality. So database Trove, codenamed as Trove, is a good example. Here you can actually use the Nova instances themselves to actually install as well as configure databases for your tenants. Now the way it does that it provides you a REST API, again for your tenants, to spin up virtual machines within Nova, provide the necessary backend for Trove so that the database that you want, whether it's relational or non-relational, gets installed within that instance, and then you can use configuration groups as your REST APIs to configure the various parameters for your database configuration, which includes things like the maximum number of connections that you want to support, the buffer size of your database. Another good example of a higher level service is Sahara, which is a data processing service. Big data and Hadoop are great examples of way OpenStack is using these to provide higher level services. So the data processing service Sahara enables you to actually build up a Hadoop cluster using virtual machine instances and actually execute jobs on them. Again, Sahara follows a plugin architecture, so you can have plugins for Hadoop, for CloudSpark, or for other big data implementations. And using the REST API exposed for your tenants, you can create a Hadoop cluster on which you can actually install and build your Hadoop environment, as well as then use APIs such as for providing the jobs that you want to execute on that Hadoop cluster. So this is called the elastic data processing part of Sahara. Now, another OpenStack service that EDP uses or Sahara uses is Swift. So you can use the Swift object storage to actually retrieve or provide the path for your scripts. And once the Hadoop cluster executes the job, the output is basically spit out again in a container that you can define within the Swift service. So this gives a very good example of how higher level services is using the lower level services such as Nova and Swift for providing compute as well as your storage requirements. Heat, the final service that I'm going to cover here today, is the orchestration template service. So you can define, just like in Amazon, you can define a set of resources, you can define this within Heat, and this will execute with all of the other services the resources that you want to be built within your OpenStack cloud. So the number of compute instances, the networking requirements for your compute instances, as well as your storage, you can all define that within a Heat template, and these will all be provisioned. In summary, what I want you to take away from this is that the ecosystem within the OpenStack community is expanding to grow beyond just providing infrastructure level services. Like I had said, we have services that support these infrastructure services, as well as higher level orchestration services that provide integration with the infrastructure level services API for the functionality that they provide. There are a lot of opportunities for new users to contribute and become part of the community. So you should consider this as low-hanging projects that will allow your businesses to actually become active in a fast-growing open source project such as OpenStack. And thank you.